So the idea is you want to capture CO2 from power plant flue gas. It's something that's a major contributor to global warming, and it's also something that has potentially high economic values because you could actually take the CO2 and pump it back into oil wells and into shale formations to kind of reinvigorate the well by repressurizing it.
There are so-called liquid amine scrubbers out there to do this. Yeah? However, they are not stable. They decompose over time. They're rather expensive because you need to regenerate those materials, and you need to put a lot of energy in the system to regenerate these materials. We plan to use biomass to do this, yeah? But actually not biomass, yeah? We will transform biomass into carbons, into activated carbons. And those activated carbons, they are first of all cheap, yeah? Super cheap, this is what we need. And also, they are scalable, yeah? You can easily scale this up to the ton scale. And, but most importantly, they are very effective, yeah? They have high CO2 absorption capacities.
And the only way to really be able to do this is to use effectively either waste or nearly waste, i.e. things that are close to being free precursors. So things like, at least in our case, what we're interested in is using waste hemp materials. So from hemp for industrial purposes, hemp for medicinal, marijuana materials actually, and really taking all those things that are really people are paying to haul off from site and taking that waste and effectively having kind of a recycling model where we take it to our site and transform it into very high performance carbons. So the thing with hemp is that the structure of hemp fibers and the inside of the hemp plant, the hemp herd, is such that, at least in my group, we've discovered that it's fairly, I wouldn't say completely straightforward, but very economical and very doable to take that initial structure and make it into a very high performance carbon. But the trick is to get the pore size, the porosity, and the chemistry correct. We haven't gotten the structure exactly where we want it to be at the kilogram scale, and we haven't gotten the cost where we want it to be for it to be very affordable for power plant applications for CO2 capture, but I think we'll get there.
This project is related to the development of a plasma-based process for the treatment of perfluoroalkyl substances in contaminated water. Perfluoroalkyl substances are a huge environmental problem. They have been found in drinking water and groundwater across the United States. It has been estimated that billions of gallons of water are actually contaminated with this class of substances. And unfortunately, they have adverse health effects. They cause problems with fetus development, they cause cancer in large concentrations. and the reality is that we have to get rid of these compounds from our drinking water.
Compounds, perfluoroalkyl substances, are surfactants, and surfactants like to be at the interface between the air and the water. It makes them very effective flame retardants, so they are used widely to suppress fires. They've also been used in manufacturing. Teflon, something people are familiar with. These compounds are precursors to Teflon production, so when Teflon's been used in the manufacturing process, these are often released in the environment.
The problem is the very high stability of the carbon-fluorine bond making the molecule. So because of that great stability, no advanced oxidation technology today can actually degrade this compound. So one exception is the plasma technology we have developed here at Clarkson University, which is capable of completely mineralizing this molecule into its basic constituents, carbon and fluorine. So today our system is ready to be scaled up. It's nearly finished, and it's one of the most effective and efficient technologies that is available today for the treatment of these compounds. So far we have 2 students and a postdoc working on the project, and it seems not to be enough. There is lots of work to be left, not only on the reactor design side, but also from the byproduct standpoint and fundamental chemistry and physics that's happening in the reactor. So it's important to understand completely, holistically, the whole process before we can actually introduce it to the public.
Healthcare MBA is an MBA degree. It's an MBA curriculum applied to the healthcare industry. So what that means is that we have a business focus on managing a healthcare enterprise. So we have a program that's 16 courses long. By course, you can decide whether you want the course online or in class. With our program, it's the same curriculum. The same professors teach in both formats. You don't get a different set of faculty teaching online versus in class. So it's the same set of information, the same classes that you're going to get from all the professors. It's just the different delivery formats.
It was great working while in the program because every night that I went to class, I had work-related things that I could apply to the material. Similarly, the next day when I went into work, I could apply terms, applications, theories. Initially, in my current role managing staff, I have so many new strategies on how to drive change and how to make things, how to lead transformatively rather than just manage people. And so that has been great.
Our faculty are all people who have experience. We don't have any faculty who have just zero practical experience. We've all had experience in industry and healthcare. We've all had professional working business experience doing that. So every single person that they will be taking classes from, the full-time faculty as well as adjuncts and participating faculty, they will recognize have deep experience in the industry, and that pays dividends. Students know that they're being taught by people that know what they're talking about.
Just there's a lot of good, valuable experience within this building of people that have real life stories and examples. So I really appreciate that experience, because they always have a story or something to help you, and I really learn best with that.
I think prior to starting the program, I had some innate ability to lead ideas and maybe some ability to lead people. I think I would have really struggled in my current job role if I wasn't in the program managing staff, because being able to reach out to professors and kind of rack their brains about, this is a situation I have with an employee, this is a situation that I have with a process, how do you think I should move the needle on this? And getting some instant feedback and some mentorship has been really helpful. Different things I've picked up in this program, I've applied them in my day-to-day. It's been recognized and I've been rewarded, and it's felt really good.
I just think it has a very nice community feel to it, and I feel like that tight-knit community, and everyone's very helpful here, and I really like that in my education experience, that I can literally go up to anyone, they're gonna know who I am here.
No change happens without risk-taking, and that's uncomfortable, It's not something you learn in school, maybe a little bit, so one piece of advice, in fact, I'll share it here, is you got to be willing to try things on that you're uncomfortable with, that you have no experience doing. And then, once you've done that, then it's your ability to communicate, get your facts straight, make your case, build it. Those are all things that are critical. The skill you need to have is the ability to influence people. It's a dimension of leadership, it's a dimension of communication, but to, evince change in any organization, be it, academia here at Clarkson, big company, small company, you've got to frame people's opinion, you got to be able to influence them. To do that, you have to have your own personal confidence, and your managers need to have confidence in you, and I think that's the confidence you earn in your early years in business. I think Clarkson does two things uniquely well. People leave here ready to work. That's it, first and foremost. They are technically ready to work. And my experience in talking with people, they're above average high contributors early on in their careers. So I think those are the two attributes. Technically checked out, critical thinking, problem solving. They've got those boxes checked.
We are thrilled to welcome to campus Dr. Rafael Brass. He is currently Provost and Executive Vice President at Georgia Tech. He is perhaps one of the most qualified academics to come to our campus. He will present a lecture in the New Horizons in Engineering series led by Leah Regal. Is going to talk about Venice, the issues that it faces.
The city of Venice, in a period of the last 100 years or so, started exhibiting increasing floods and damaging the infrastructure of the city and certainly hampering the commerce and operations. So the solution is simply to separate the Adriatic from the lagoon in times of predicted flooding. These barriers are anchored at the bottom of the sea in the inlets. When they are needed, the idea is that they would be floated, not the whole thing, they are hinged, so they move up, hinge around an anchor at the bottom, and that, when they go up, they create a continuous barrier that separates the ocean from the lagoon. What led to the situation we find ourselves now there was corruption. It was human frailty, human failure, accusations of bribes, accusations of people trying to get around the bureaucracy by paying money. But the bottom line is that that has led to not a stop of the project, in theory it's still going, but in effect a freeze, slow progress that endangers the whole thing, in my opinion. Well, I think all of us as professionals should always live by a set of guidelines and values. And those, when it comes to values of honesty and integrity, should never be compromised. We should never shy away when we observe, when we know in fact something is not right, to make a statement.
This is Men's Group, which is acronym for Men's Empowerment Network, and what we're here for is try to get the minority group to become future leaders as well as handle financial business.
We discuss leadership roles, how to be a better leader, how to do everything we can to prosper. It's like a family away from your family at college. It's hard at Clarkson or anywhere in life.
It is a weird thing to say, empowering men. However, when it comes to minorities, the media portrays this bad image of us, but they don't show the good side a lot.
Empowerment means to us development. This group allows us to overcome the boundaries that we face every day.
I went from being some kid who was average to increasing my grades to look like some type of representative for a field that is difficult.
We're about just trying to get everyone's different perspective, push other members, minorities and Caucasians, and we try to advance in a positive light for ourselves ultimately, but for other groups as well too. So that's why I believe and think.
So the problem is that we're aiming to address is how to deal with invasive species or pest species. So there's been quite a lot of work trying to get at how to deal with these kinds of species. Chemical pesticides is one approach that people have used a lot of in the past. That can have toxic consequences, so it's not always great. An alternative is to use biocontrol methods, so that means using a predator to try to eliminate the pests, so the predator will eat things. We want to try to basically refine this approach using something that's been suggested through mathematical models, and that is food supplementation of the predators. And so the modeling work has shown that this kind of approach should be effective.
So the math model is very general. It's a predator-prey Locta-Volterra system, which basically says that if you take away the prey, the predator is going to die, right? But with the additional food, if you provide the predator with a little bit of additional, constant additional food, then what can happen is the predator can clean out the prey and survive on the additional food.
What we want to do is now combine the models with lab experiments. So setting up a simple system where we can put a pest species, so here we're using bacteria as our sort of model, and predator species, we're using a single-celled protozoa that eats bacteria as our predator. So we can put those together and create this model system where we're able to manipulate things really easily and follow the dynamics of the populations and see whether or not adding another food source is actually going to eliminate this pest species, or what might be the additional biological parameters that we're not thinking about that might be important to go back to the models and refine the models and think about how the system works.
Probably the most exciting thing for me to see these things translate to something which is
I sort of think to myself sometimes, like when I'm out there, like I'm getting paid to do this summer. Like this is great. Like I'm doing sort of what I might be doing on this day anyways, you know, just fishing, and I'm getting paid to do it, and I'm actually doing something with it other than just the sport, you know. So Dr. Gao, actually, who was my advisor at the beginning of the year, I asked her about research, and she suggested Dr. Skeels, who I didn't know, and then I came to him with some very poorly cobbled together ideas. I just said, you know, I like the environment and chemistry. He sort of took those interests and then created a project that was feasible and that he would be willing and capable of supporting. So it's a mercury analysis of Church Pond in the Western Adirondacks, and that includes sort of a field component and a lab component. So on field days, I'm going down and I'm collecting fish, insects, sediment, shells like mollusks, and plant samples, as well as anything else I just sort of come across. There we go. Pumpkin seed, I think, weigh a bit. The fish, I'm taking little samples, just little 5mm chunks, and there's been some literature that says that that's just as accurate and as the traditional method of taking the whole fish and like using the fillet. Come on, buddy. There you go. Gonna be all right. And then when I get to the lab, the first step is to freeze dry them, which takes like 16 to 24 hours, so I usually do that overnight. And then once they're freeze dried, I run them through the mercury analyzer. Mercury is an incredibly dangerous pollutant. It has a lot of negative effects on the human body and human health, and it makes its way into the human body largely through eating fish. Like a lot of environmental research and sort of environmental regulations are put into place, is the effect that it has on human health. And so I think that's really important to highlight those risks so that we can just gain as much knowledge as we can about these things. The St. Start Challenge grant, it funds a budget that we create as part of our proposal. So it's really open-ended. The kayak, I purchased through it, fishing supplies, the dermal punch I used to sample the fish. The stipend, I really needed that to be able to do this research. Like I couldn't do this without the ability to financially support myself for these 2 months. Doing this, I've had to sort of get over a lot of my bug squeamishness. So I'm sort of doing now, honestly, what I would like to do for a career. Like working in the field, working in the lab, and like working with chemistry. The environment has always been sort of my focus of interest, and this is a way to apply like the chemical principles that I've been learning to that. Doing research here as an undergrad is pretty unique in that you can definitely sort of do things that you're interested in.
I began kind of exploring things outside of the classroom, but it was sophomore fall when I was paired up with Mike Arpey as my link mentor that things really started to get going in a career aspect.
And I came to St. Lawrence hoping that this would be my bridge to Wall Street.
The LINK program is Laurentians Investing in Networking and Careers. Mike Arpey took me under his wing and kind of just gave me some general career advice. What kind of piece of finance can we find that interests you? So he was really helpful in that exploration process.
The reason why it worked so well with Jackie is that Jackie maintained a relationship with me.
And he also just gave me a lot of confidence in networking, not being afraid to say, hello, my name is Jackie Sovey and I'm interested in finance. I knew I wanted to kind of get into the finance world, and the best place to do it for me would be New York City, as close to Wall Street as possible.
So I want H1.
So after the summer of my sophomore year, I was able to get an internship through an alum at TD Ameritrade, and it was a really 9-to-5 sort of job, so I had a lot of time either before work or after work to start really cultivating my own professional network. And so I started cold messaging people on LinkedIn, and I cold messaged 278 people, and I had well over 75 coffees that summer. One of the most important coffees I had was with Laurentian's father, who I'd played lacrosse with, and he actually got me 3 sit-down talks inside of big banks and got to see the inside, meet people, and actually be able to understand what I was getting myself into. So I ultimately went to Morgan Stanley for the internship because that's where the Laurentian support was, and I was really excited about that opportunity. This summer after my junior year, I didn't have time for coffees anymore. I was doing work from like 6 in the morning until almost 11 at night sometimes. But I was lucky to have Laurentians by my side while I was doing that because they were there to look out for me and help give me advice and make me very successful. So I'm really excited to start as a full-time analyst with Morgan Stanley this coming summer after I graduate in May. Companies like Uber are looking to IPO because my piece of advice for incoming Laurentians and people making their decision is first to look at the Princeton Review and see that we're number 3 in the country for Alumni Network. Don't wait until you're a senior looking for a job to start developing these relationships with Laurentians all over the world. Use the Link Mentor program and LinkedIn. We have career services, professors, to start diving into the network as soon as you get here because you're going to leave with hundreds of connections if you do that. That will not only bode you well in a professional life, but your personal life as well.
So the idea is you want to capture CO2 from power plant flue gas. It's something that's a major contributor to global warming, and it's also something that has potentially high economic values because you could actually take the CO2 and pump it back into oil wells and into shale formations to kind of reinvigorate the well by repressurizing it.
There are so-called liquid amine scrubbers out there to do this. Yeah? However, they are not stable. They decompose over time. They're rather expensive because you need to regenerate those materials, and you need to put a lot of energy in the system to regenerate these materials. We plan to use biomass to do this, yeah? But actually not biomass, yeah, we will transform biomass into carbons, into activated carbons. And those activated carbons, they are first of all cheap, yeah, super cheap, this is what we need. And also, they are scalable, yeah, you can easily scale this up to the ton scale. And, but most importantly, they are very effective Yeah? They have high CO2 absorption capacities.
And the only way to really be able to do this is to use effectively either waste or nearly waste, i.e. things that are close to being free precursors. So things like, at least in our case, what we're interested in is using waste hemp materials. So from hemp for industrial purposes, hemp for medicinal, marijuana materials actually, and really taking all those things that are really people are paying to haul off from site and taking that waste and effectively having kind of a recycling model where we take it to our site and transform it into very high performance carbons. So the thing with hemp is that the structure of hemp fibers and the inside of the hemp plant, the hemp herd, is such that, at least in my group, we've discovered that it's fairly, I wouldn't say completely straightforward, but very economical and very doable to take that initial structure and make it into a very high performance carbon. But the trick is to get the pore size, the porosity, and the chemistry correct. We haven't gotten the structure exactly where we want it to be at the kilogram scale, and we haven't gotten the cost where we want it to be for it to be very affordable for power plant applications for CO2 capture, but I think we'll get there.